Oh, you have to click accept. There you go. Cool. I would love this.
Voila.
For this
Oh, hey, look, there you are.
Yeah, I would love for that to be bigger, like on my screen, but as of right now, it's whatever. God dang, technical issues. This is what happens when you try new things. This is why you should always do the same thing every time and never change a thing.
Yeah, exactly. That way you'll never get disappointed.
Set your expectations extremely low. Okay. All right. So I've got note. Okay, so I found this app called Evernote. It's nice. So like I can put notes on my phone. You can take full screen like screenshots. Even it'll scroll for you like down a website or whatever, and you can also write notes. But then you can link it. It's your account, so now I can pull them up on the computer later, which is fantastic. Okay, so I do have a couple notes and things I wanted to cover, mainly um, uh, about UFC 247, Jones versus Reyes.
Yes.
Okay, so first of all, I don't want to take anything away from either fighter because that fight was really good. People are mad because of the decision. Fine, I gave the first 2 rounds to Reyes, and then I think because I've watched it again. Um, when I initially scored it, I had it 2-2 going into the final, and I think I gave that third round to Jones partially because subconsciously I was in the mindset of how they had been judging the fights that night. But even when I went back and watched it, I'm not angry at anybody giving Jones the third round, so if that's fine. Here are my pet peeves because I have a few of them.
Let's hear it.
Okay, so this one, these things will probably come up again just in general conversation about fights or any other sporting activity. One, when someone says this guy's the best guy ever when he's healthy, that's part of the sport. If you're not healthy enough to compete, you are not compete like you can't like you're not competing. So you do not have the ability to show off whatever skill you might or might not have. Therefore, you're not the best ever. Like if you fight it, let's take the UFC for example, right? My favorite one is Cain Velasquez. Phenomenal fighter. I'm not going to take anything away from his skill level or anything. But part of the fight is getting into the octagon. If you can't make it into there biologically or because of transgressions outside of the octagon, you're not fighting. So you're not the best fighter if you're not fighting. And I can't believe that that's an argument that people want to have when they talk about like, oh, Kane's the best ever at sea level when he's healthy and fighting. It's like you just put 3 different qualifiers on a best ever argument. If you have to do that, he's probably not the best ever. Say what you want about Fedor, not fighting the top of, the food chain at the time. He had a 25 fight unbeaten streak at heavyweight. In fact, it should have been more. He should have been undefeated, but one of those early fights got called because of a cut. Whatever. I still like him as the greatest heavyweight of all time because of just like his consistent output. And even today, like if you watch that Rampage fight, which I don't recommend, it's a sad state of affairs. Anyway, the Rampage looks like he'd be great for modeling Burger King. And
Okay.
I love Rampage. I think he's a hilarious dude. He's fun to watch. Like he was fun to watch fight, and even today, like he's still fun talking smack. But he clearly just doesn't care about fitness anymore. Whatever.
It might be the definition of past its prime. Like if you someone show their prime and then say this is what it looks like when they're past their prime, like that's just Rampage from him fighting Chuck Liddell to now. It's just it's basically a different human being. It's not the same person.
So yeah, and that's what I'm saying about Fedor is like his chin. Obviously, he can't take the hits anymore. He's taken a lot of punishment. Fine, that's okay. But you have to
He's
realize, like,
75 years old.
yeah, in fight years, like he's like 150. He's been fighting since he was like a small child. So his skills are still top notch. He can still like his hand speed is still great. I firmly believe he is the greatest heavyweight of all time. And if that's an argument that someone wants to go against, I'm fine. I'm open to it. But don't bring to me Cain Velasquez and then tell me, oh, well, if he was healthy, like, no, stop. Like he had like a string of bad luck, maybe bad training technique, whatever you want to call it. He just was not able to perform.
Do you remember the kettlebell video?
Yes.
Like, you have to take a little bit of responsibility for that as a person. Like,
Yeah.
If that's what you've signed on for with a strength and conditioning coach, then yeah, you might not make it to the ring.
Yeah, and so along these same lines is like focus and any other they're not even intangibles. These are measurable things, saying a guy like, oh, if he would have trained harder for this fight, he would have won it, or if he would have focused, like when Jones fought Gustafsson the first time. When anybody puts he won the fight on the judges' scorecards with the exact same score against Reyes, by the way. All three judges had the exact same scores.
I thought one had given him 4 rounds.
No, that's what I'm saying.
Oh.
All three judges from this one, all 3 cards, they were the identical cards from the first Gustafsson fight. 3-2 in the same rounds. The exact same rounds, too. Weird, right?
That is strange.
So for that fight, it's famous. He famously said, like, "Oh, I didn't train for that fight." So if he had lost, that fact that you didn't train, that does not come into play here.
I hate that excuse too. I hate when people say, "Oh, he didn't take it seriously," or "Oh, he didn't train." I'm like, well, that's part of an indictment on how he is as a fighter.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. Like, that's what I'm saying. If that's part of fighting, or that's part of a sport, is being able to get up for that sport, being able to push yourself when things, outside distractions, or you don't feel like doing it. That's part of the sport. And we look at guys like Dominic Cruz or Frankie Edgar, these guys with like indomitable spirits and crazy cardio, and we congratulate them for that, and we acknowledge their accomplishments. But at the same time, when someone doesn't do what they're doing, we immediately use it as an excuse to why they would have lost or didn't do it. Like, I don't understand the logic there.
And I think that goes into, like, when we're talking about the greatest of all time argument, we're not talking about the greatest talent level of all time. It's the greatest fighter level of all time. Jon Jones might have the greatest talent level, but if he doesn't show up to fights, if he, gaffes it off, if he doesn't train for certain ones, then, that's an indictment on him being greatest of all time.
Yeah, and I'm okay with people putting him in that argument now. He's shown that he's kind of got it together a little bit, and to be honest, I'm more than happy that he's back, and I'm glad he's doing like a majority of his fighting and his work inside the octagon now. Okay, couple other things that came up from this fight. The talk of, oh, he looked fresher after the fight. That does not matter. Having energy at the end of the fight, not when during the last round, that's important. After the fight is over, having energy counts for nothing. You get no points. No points are awarded, and may God have mercy on your soul. But there's no benefit to saving it past that point, because you're not being judged.
It's not a 12-round fight.
Right.
Yeah. It's cool if you could have gone 12 rounds, but you knew it was a 5-round fight.
Yeah. So this goes along with that argument. Rogan said it, and he qualified it. He said, "I know this is a bonehead or a meathead way to look at it." So, right, we can give him a pass, but making the argument of saying, "Oh, if this fight had gone on another 5 rounds," nope, stop. That's not the sport. That's not what we're doing. If that was the sport, people would fight different. They would train different. They understand that there's going to be 10 rounds. Even if there was one more round or 2.
Or if it was one 30-minute round and there was no breaks, people would train differently.
Exactly. Like, they train for what's put in front of them. They train for the obstacles that they need to pass. And if the obstacle is, I have 5 minutes to put in work, and then I have 1 minute to recover, and I have to do that 3 times or 5 times, depending on if it's a main event or title fight, right? They train that way. You watch people train. They train with, like, they might do, some fighters and some trainers do this thing where they'll train like 10-minute rounds with like a minute rest. And that's a philosophy that, you can go back and forth on. It might actually be better for some people's physiology than others. So that's fine. But they're training for a rounded fight with segments, not a 30-minute fight, not a 25-minute fight. They're training for segmented rounds that give you an overall structure to how you're going to train. If that was not the case, or the structure was different, or the obstacles were different, like if they were going to throw a bear in the cage, they would train for that.
I got a great example for this. Take an Olympic sprinting team and then pick someone that runs the 100 meter incredibly fast versus someone that runs a 400 meter.
Yes.
Who's the fastest? Like, it's just two different things. It might be the same event, but they train differently for different lengths of time, for different bursts of speed. Like, you just can't equate the two. So you are the best at what you were signed up to do. I don't care if you're the fastest in the 400 meter. If you're, that doesn't mean you're automatically the fastest in the 100 meter. If you say, oh, if this race had gone on 300 more meters, I would have beat them.
Right.
But yeah, that's cool that you had energy after the fact, but we still know it's a 5-round fight. You knew going into it.
Yes, and so that's one of the arguments that it drives me bonkers. And then again, that same logic, it's the last rounds count for more, or the last rounds mean more. I get where this comes from, because Pride had a scoring system that was similar to that, and also to the eye test. So here's where it does matter. Inside of a round, right? Let's say I crack you early, right? I put you down early in the first 30 seconds, okay? And I'm putting it on you. But then I gas out a little bit, okay? Then it's back and forth for the rest of the round, and then you put it on me in the last minute, okay? Let's say everything being equal, like damage, control, and all the other things being equal, I would probably give more weight to the end of that round, because that is a measure, like that is a defined segment that we have to score. Okay. Once it's in the books, that's it. And that round now counts for 1/5 of all the points possible. Not 1/3, not 1/10, 1/5. And that goes for every single round. You can't just say, oh, well, the later rounds matter more because, you need to have cardio. Cardio is a skill, right? If Conor McGregor wants to train to be explosive and have the ability to put it on you for the first 2.5 rounds, and that's how he fights, that's how he's training. He's not training for all-out cardio like Frankie Edgar and being able to put it on you in the last couple rounds. So if he wins those rounds in a dominant fashion, gets a 10-8 or whatever it might be, or finishes you, those rounds count the same as the person who practiced more cardio. Now, Jon Jones does this thing where he paces himself in the first couple rounds, downloads all your data, really feels you out. Like he is a master at adjusting, and he's got a great camp for it. So in those later rounds, especially because he also has great cardio, he's able to put it on you. And all credit to him, and that's his fight style. His fighting style, the way it is now, is made for 5-round fights. That's fantastic. And like I said, I actually scored it for him, and I'm just going to stand by that. Like, that's fine. I give him the fight. Yeah. But the argument that you have to, like, they're more important. Well, if they were more important, this goes back to what we just said. They would train different. They would know that, like, oh, hey, we're going to take the first couple rounds and feel each other out a little bit because I get 20 more points in the next round. Okay, then if you want to try that, try those rule sets and let's see how the fights look. It's going to be pretty dull.
Yeah, I'd say, and I can see why people were upset by the decision, but I also I don't get how the one judge scored 4 rounds for Jon Jones. That's just.
I actually do now. I don't agree. No. I don't agree. but I get how he did it because one of the judges who gave 3 rounds to Jones gave Jones the second round.
All right, here's the problem. Here's the problem. We shouldn't even be having this argument because the scoring system is out of this world idiotic for the sport. It just doesn't fit.
I think it was good when the sport first started.
I mean, I think they should have made more of an effort to push away from it when it first started, when they might have even had the chance. And the whole system with state athletic commissions and how judges are selected and all that, I think it's just that should not be a part of the UFC. That whole thing needs to be re-examined. Why are there state officials on taxpayer dollars involved in any way in UFC?
I mean, I can give you the actual answer, which is the boxing did it, so that's why.
Yeah, it's a different sport.
Yes, and that's my
there's no state officials judging karate matches.
Are they professional?
I don't know. I'm just saying. Like,
oh wait, yeah, that's true because the amateur matches still have state officials. Yeah. So, I think initially the push, it's been fairly well documented now. The push, like especially with John McCarthy talking about it openly on Rogan's podcast and then also on his own podcast with Josh Thompson. They've gone over like the concessions that they made in order to just get the sport legalized to begin with. You know, with John McCain pushing hard against it. You know, New York banning it right before an event and all those. Like if you're familiar with the UFC, you're familiar with those stories, and I understand why they did what they did, and they kept the scoring system the same.
I get that, but I still think at this day and age, come on. Now it's time to sit back and be like, all right, this doesn't make sense anymore.
So
we played the game. Now we need to overhaul this because it's fucking stupid.
So I don't disagree with you. I do agree that the scoring system needs to be tweaked at a minimum, maybe revamped and totally redone at the extreme end. And I know you're a Luke Thomas fan. By the way, super excited. He's going to be on Rogan next month. Like he finally got the call. Like Rogan invited him on. I'm super excited. So
I'm looking forward to that too.
Luke Thomas makes an excellent point about how like people talk about, oh, we should have open scoring because it'll make it better. And Luke Thomas goes, how do you know? How do you know? It hasn't been done. Let's do it. Let's try it. And Kentucky, I believe it's Kentucky that's going to be doing it first. But he's got a great point that the other leagues, the NBA has a G League, the NFL, I don't know if they really. Oh, I think they look. Oh, the XFL. That's his point. He brought, the camera system that the NFL uses now with that overhead camera that slides back straight out of the XFL.
Yeah.
Like they just stole all their stuff that they liked and then got rid of the stuff they didn't like. And the XFL now, they're doing like that extra point system where like you can go for 1, 2, or 3 depending on how close you are. There's no kicking and the kickoffs are different. I guarantee you the NFL is looking at that like, oh, let's see how this works out. That's how you do it. You gotta practice it. If it works, awesome. And that's what I'd like to see is the UFC has nothing but they have nothing but data collection services at their they own Titan FC, they own Invicta. Well, they don't own Invicta, but they're heavily partnered with Invicta. They are the brand when it comes to MMA, and if they start meddling in the smaller promotions and asking them like, hey, why don't you try this out? And we'll see how this goes. Or they talk to a commission like, hey, why don't you guys try this out and see how this goes during these smaller ones? And they can opt in. Like, let's say if it's not owned by the UFC, these smaller promotions could opt in. Like, oh, let's try a 10-point must system, or like a 20-point must system, or a half-point must system, or let's try a totally different scoring system that's out of 50. Let's try a system that scores each, whatever, and let's test.
I just think there also needs to be an established guideline for what are we weighing more heavily. Because when you got someone that walks forward versus a counterpuncher,
they changed that.
That's what I mean. Like,
but not in Texas. Texas was using the old rules.
Which is why I'm like, this is just why, like, get the states out of it. Why is the government involved in UFC?
that is a huge problem that each state does not have to adopt the. I'm not going to call it the unified rules because it's not unified. No,
Because they're not. Yeah.
it's unified by those who chose to opt in, which was not everyone. Therefore, it's not unified. Anyway,
Yeah. Kind of like the Universal Declaration of Human Rights that not everyone signs on to.
yeah, you mean the one universal.
That's what I mean. There's plenty of universal things that everyone just doesn't quite acknowledge,
That's my
including
favorite.
UFC rules.
That's my favorite thing that like humans in general do, from down from the smallest like thing like in a household all the way up to the biggest organizations and governments, like saying universal or uh like global or world champion, like the World Series. Is it really? What other countries are competing in the World Series? So and here's the other
Like,
thing.
I don't see.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
Honestly, probably the most credible World Series outside the Olympics is like the Little League World Series
In Japan.
because they actually bring in they
Oh,
actually bring in like other countries' teams.
yes. Yeah.
Like that might be one of the most legitimate like world sports outside of like I guess football, FIFA.
Yeah.
I'll
I
grant
agree.
that. But like from an American's perspective, in a sport that people care about and actually watch, like there's no European leagues coming over and playing in the NBA.
Yeah. But then there's one other thing that I've been hearing. Even Rashad Evans said it, and I know it's an old mindset, and I don't know where it comes from. I don't know who the first person to say it. I don't know why it was said in what context originally, but it's been repeated ad nauseum. You got to beat the champ to be the champ. It's like first of all, it's loaded. That statement is so loaded because what do you mean beat? Because by a lot of people's scorecards, Reyes won 3 rounds, which by definition means he beat the champ. So, okay. Otherwise,
Do you
like
have to win 4 rounds to beat the champ? Is that
I
the
know
is
that's
that
what.
the
What are you
threshold? What are we
saying?
talking?
Like, do you have to go in there and bully beatdown, just beat the shit out of him in order? Like, does it have to be a totally one-sided affair? That's not. This is not a.
You have to
Oh,
beat Kamaru Usman, or else you're not really being the champ. Yeah, let's be honest.
you, you have to take down your opponent 13 times each round and then make them cry to their mother. And if you don't, then they still maintain championship in the belt. So dumb. Okay, did you watch the main event from last night?
So yeah, I went back and reviewed it. Poor Corey Anderson. But
Yep.
all right, so shoot, I can pronounce the other dude's name. How do you
Yeah.
pronounce it?
Okay. All right. So I Googled it. I've heard different broadcasts. So I used to say Blachowicz, but it's Blachowicz or Blachowicz. I've heard it multiple ways. It's
Ovich?
the ch is soft.
Okay,
It's just the h. Yeah, that's fine. Blachowicz. I'm gonna say Blachowicz because it sounds better to me. So
sounds good to me. Anyway, is that the
or
same
just
dude
say
that beat?
Jan.
Shoot,
Luke Rockhold.
yes,
Yeah, you
that's the
knocked the
dude.
shit out of him.
Because I was watching that fight, I'm like, is that the same guy? Because I feel like it's the same guy, but I didn't have time to
Yes.
look it up. Yeah. All right. Title shot? Like, I mean, it's light heavyweight, so once you win 3 or 4 in a row.
Yeah, there's a so if you look at his last
Because I know
couple
Corey
fights,
Anderson was on the cusp of a title shot before that fight.
yeah, okay. So I was a bit of a naysayer and more judgmental of Corey Anderson when he came out of the Ultimate Fighter. He beat some guy. I still remember the fight because that was one of the last Ultimate Fighters that I actually paid attention to. This guy came out in a stance. It was the same fight card where Frankie Edgar fought BJ Penn again, and we were like, "Oh, BJ, stop fighting." Yeah, yeah, that was like
Yeah,
eight.
please, BJ, no.
That was like 8 years ago or 6 years ago. It was forever ago. So I was not initially impressed because of the guy he beat, and then his next couple of fights, going back and forth, and it wasn't on the Corey Anderson train. I remember he got knocked out by OSP in the last round, even though he was winning that fight. It just seemed like he couldn't put it
What
together.
happened to OSP?
I think he's just on hiatus right now. Like he doesn't have a matchup. I don't think he retired.
Yeah, it's been
The
a while.
the the dude just had no like OSP. I liked his fights because he was exciting, but he just had no cardio, man.
Hmm.
He was just gassed by the second round every single fight, and you could see it on his face because he's one of the hardest guys to take down in the first round. Like these guys would try to put it on him, put him on the ground, and he would just lift you up with his arms. And he's a scary dude. Like he can hit hard for all 3 rounds. I mean, remember when he fought John Jones?
I know. And that was
Yeah,
like John Jones' coming back fight.
yeah, that he fought him on like a week's notice or something, or 10
Yeah.
days notice, and he went all 5 rounds with John. So I mean, you can
Granted,
chalk that up
that
to
was
whatever you want.
power lifter John Jones, who was
What?
stiff as a board going into that fight.
Sure, I don't. I think other things played a factor. I think a lot of that was ring rust.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I before this fight, I was really rooting for even during this fight. I've been rooting for Corey Anderson. I like his story a lot. I mean, he's from Illinois, so he's kind of a hometown guy. Got to root for him. But also he put out a tweet during that whole fiasco with the picograms thing when they moved the fight from Las Vegas to California. He put out a tweet and it made me feel for him. His wife was pregnant and they made them get on a flight. Like if he wanted his wife to come with, like she was 7 months pregnant or something, and then they made them get on a flight and fly to California a day before the fight. And he was just like, he just kind of went off and he's like, oh, I like my whole life has to get turned upside down because this Joker can't keep his shit together. And like it was very well worded and heartfelt, and I felt for him a lot. And he's kind of put it together, and he's done really well. And when he knocked out, oh God, what's that stripper's name? Do you know what I'm talking about? Uh
No.
oh, he's an exotic
Stripper?
dancer. Yeah, 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 yeah. The last guy he just
Oh, I
fought.
know who you're talking about. Yes. Yes. I remember this one.
Yeah, he just fought. Oh, poop. Now I'm gonna be. Oh, Johnny Walker. Yeah, yeah,
Yes.
yeah, yeah, yeah. He's a stripper, or a former stripper, whatever. So when he knocked him out, I was like, boom, that's it. This is it. This is it right here. He gets a title shot next because everybody was high on Johnny Walker because he's tall. He's got that awkward style that could challenge John Jones.
And it was
And
explosive and weird.
yeah, and Corey just like put all that to bed and took him out. And I was like, hell yeah. All right, let's give Corey his title shot. And then going into this fight, I'm like, oh, he dominated Jan last time, took him down, held him there. I was like, this is money for him. He's just going to go in there and do what he needs to do. And also, he's 7 years younger than Jan, I think. I think Jan is like 36 or 38. Yeah, he's up there in years. I think actually it might be 5 years younger. But anyway, I think for the future of the division, I thought, Corey going at it with John would have made for like an interesting bout. Regardless of how it ended up going, I just thought he deserved a title shot. And then seeing him get knocked out so fast, like knowing his story, it's just, dude, it's freaking heartbreaking for him.
It's a
That being
brutal game.
said, Jan Blachowicz was not known as a knockout artist until recently. He's a ground guy. Like he goes for submissions.
Yeah.
His anti-wrestling, like his counters have been getting so much better. He's an imposing dude. Like he's big, he's strong, and he can crack, man. So
Yeah. I'm interested.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's what I'm saying.
And I've heard that, if he fights John Jones next, the likely thing will be Santos versus Reyes. And then winner of that fights, let's be real, probably John Jones after that. So you either get a Reyes rematch or a Santos rematch, which either one of those, I mean, I'm game for. I'll watch that fight.
Yeah, there's a part of me that looks at Jan's game. It's just
I don't see him.
I don't.
I don't know. I don't want to count him out because he's
Well,
shown that he can bring it in big. Like everyone counted him out against Luke Rockhold, and he just.
I did. I didn't.
Yeah, but I mean, like the narrative was counting him out.
Yeah, I know because everybody wanted Luke's a freaking model, man. Like they all want him to win every time.
And that's almost how you know the UFC isn't fixed. Is when shit like that happens.
Yeah, yeah. So looking at Jan's game, I haven't done like an in-depth thing, and I haven't gone back and watched a lot of his old fights. And this is going to sound ageist a little bit. So he's an older guy, right? More set in his ways. Obviously, you can still add wrinkles to your game, and he's shown that over the past couple of years. But he's getting up there, man. Um, do I think if I had to decide right now, and someone asked me like, do you think he could make enough changes in a camp or properly game plan and do what Reyes did or something or his version of that, right? Maybe it's not counterfighting. Maybe it's something totally different. Whatever his version might be, do I think he can do that against Jon? No, I just don't, man. There's he's not an overwhelming force like physically. He's not a totally knockout puncher. He does not he could outpoint you, but against Jon, that's a tall order, man.
There's only one guy I think in that division that still has a chance if he gets a match against Jon Jones again. I think that's Santos. I think his knee going out in that fight, cost us possibly seeing something that we might not have expected. And if we saw a rematch, like I know obviously Jon Jones has now seen his game and see what he's about, but I think he's probably still the most dangerous person in that division for Jones to fight again.
Yeah, the light heavyweight division, it's the I could be speaking out of turn, but and because of recency bias and lots of other things. So, like in my head, I can't pull out a contender who is like dynamic enough, who can crack hard enough, and also has like enough well-rounded game to compete with Jon. I can't pick one in my head.
If I could build a fighter that I'd want to see fight Jon, I would want like a light heavyweight Damian Maia. But I don't know if there's one in the division that could be at that level. Like that's what I'd want to see Jon fight against. Like I've seen what he does against counterpunchers. I've seen what he does against
Wrestlers.
Guys trying to knock him out, power punchers. I want to see I would like to see someone with some amazing technical ground game that isn't afraid to bring the fight to the ground.
That's pretty rare at the light heavyweight and
I
heavyweight
know,
division, isn't it?
Like it's been a while. Like I can't think of the last time that. I mean, we've had great jiu-jitsu guys in light heavyweight, but they didn't fight with it. Like Little Machito was good, Vitor Belfort, but they didn't fight that way.
That was karate, and they weren't.
I know.
Those guys are like almost purely strikers. If you put, freaking Vitor, Vitor is like a turtle on his back.
But there is no like Damian Maia in the light heavyweight. There isn't really those guys. There's no Verdum. Like if Verdum cut down to light heavyweight.
Oh, you're right. Okay, so Verdum.
I would see that if Verdum.
Well, so that's the other possibility is Jon going up to heavyweight, and there are honestly probably like 5. I could probably name 5 right now. Stipe, so you got Stipe, you got Ngannou. Yeah. Depending on how this Rosenstruik fight goes, maybe he could be fun. I would watch him against Alistair Overeem. Are you kidding me? Fantastic. Verdum when he comes back from his suspension.
I forgot he was suspended.
Yeah. Yeah, he got caught with more than picograms. So I mean, I think heavyweight. I mean, it's been the talk for the last 2-3 years now. Ever since
Rumble Johnson is also sitting up there.
Oh, that's the one. That's it. That's the one I was forgetting. Yep. He's coming back, and I still think, as much as Ngannou is praised for his power, I still think the scariest guy ever in the UFC with punching power was Anthony Rumble Johnson at light heavyweight. I can't think of another person.
An Ngannou Rumble Johnson fight, like, can we have that, please? Just
yeah.
Just once.
I'm down. Yeah, that would be really exciting. We talked about this a couple weeks ago. Like heavyweight has slowly become very interesting, which is crazy because heavyweight, let's all just be real. If you're 6'4" and you're an athletic 240-pound, 250-pound guy, you're probably not fighting in MMA, right? You're playing a sport that pays you money. So
with health benefits.
right. Yeah, like
And a
long-term brain
retirement plan.
damage.
Yeah.
But that's what I'm saying. It's like a lot of these guys who would be heavyweights find themselves in a different career path much earlier on in life, and these lighter guys have no future outside of competing in their limited like space. Like wrestling's the best example. There's no professional avenue for amateur wrestlers, except for professional wrestling is not wrestling. It's fun. People like it. That's cool. That's awesome. It's like it's a show. People really enjoy it. That's fine.
It's basically take bodybuilding and combine it with ballroom dance or like ballet.
Sure. I
contact ballet with bodybuilders. Like that's
gymnastics.
I respect it. Gymnastics, yeah.
Yeah, dude. Like it's I'm not into it anymore.
It's a thing. It's
yeah. I mean, when I was a kid, I really enjoyed professional wrestling. And I never thought it was real. There was never a moment in my head where I'm like, this looks real. Like, this is how people would fight. And I wasn't into the UFC in the 90s. Like, it wasn't my, like, I didn't grow up watching it until, the early 2000s. So I didn't have a frame of reference other than movies and how people fought. So it's not like I saw that and I'm like, oh, this is fake. I just knew that wasn't real. Yeah. And so I'm watching it and I just enjoyed it, man. It was fun to watch. Like
it's theater. Like
that's what I'm saying.
No one wants to say it, but it is just theater. Like it's scripted, it's action. There's just way more contact, but like, I mean, it's pretty much the same thing that people would see 1,000 years ago in an amphitheater.
It's like it's the same thing that you go when you watch a movie. They're not fighting for real. You know that. But it doesn't matter. Like the way they're portraying it and the way that they act, it tells a story, and that's awesome. So
I mean, people don't want to hear it because they still have this wonderful like Spartacus ideal of gladiators, but gladiator combat was probably closer to WWE than it was to the UFC. Yes. At least that's what evidence seems to point to.
Also, it wasn't as okay. In modern day, like, yes, there was probably brutal, and yes, they did have lions and ship battles and all those other things inside the Colosseum. Yes.
Professional gladiators were closer to professional wrestlers than they were to anything else. Yeah.
Yeah, and not every, like in a lot of fights, like there wasn't like a dead person at the end of every single fight. You would have no stable of fighters left.
Almost never. I mean, that's actually like, it was a legitimate rarity in the professional gladiator realm.
Right. So when people want to shit on wrestling just because like they want to be, that guy, like, oh, like
it's all fake.
Yeah. Oh, it's fake, bro. That's so fake. Like that's not how people would really fight. Yeah, I know it's fake. I'm defending wrestling. I don't even
guess
watch
what else
it.
Hey, guess what else is fake? Every fucking action movie you've ever watched.
Yes.
The combat in there is probably less real and there's less contact going on than most professional wrestling matches.
It's not happening live. Watch it. Have you seen Brock Lesnar jump off of the top rope?
There's no second take.
That man weighs over 300 pounds. That is incredible. The sounds that are made when they smack the ground, like you get to watch an action scene it's like being behind the scenes, watching like actual stunt actors go at it. That's what you're watching. It's freaking awesome. Again, I don't watch it anymore. It's not something like I take time out of my day to pay attention to, but I'm not for the people who are just against it just to be like that guy. Like, oh, that's so stupid, man. That's like for children. Why do you watch that? Because people like it. Whatever.
I respect it for what it is. Yeah.
Also, a lot of other people like it, and they seem to make a lot of money, and they do pretty well for themselves. So, better than the UFC fighters. That's for damn sure. There's a reason why. Here's a great example. Cain Velasquez is wrestling now. Why do you think that is?
Yeah, he's jumping off the top rope.
He can make it to the ring more than he can make it to the octagon. He's making more money, and he's putting putting enough money away to like make sure his family's set for life. Fantastic, man. Good on you. That's great.
Yeah. If I'm Vince McMahon, I would just keep poaching. Just be like, oh, hey, you didn't get that contract you wanted with the UFC? Come on over here. Hey, Cowboy, come to the WWE.
I think Cowboy would be an interesting one, but I'd be worried because he likes fighting too much.
Yeah, but his persona and character would
That's
translate
what.
so
Yeah, I know.
well that
That'd be fun.
that if that isn't part of his retirement plan, I'm just, just do it for a couple years. Have fun with it. They'll take
Yeah,
care of you.
it's like when you get out of politics, like you have a job with
K Street,
the company.
You go to a lobbying company.
That'd be awesome.
Oh.
So there's actually a couple more fights on the card. Like I want to make note of. Couple people looked really good.
Yeah, let's talk the disqualifications.
Okay, we can go over that first. So first of all, a knee to a grounded opponent is a relatively rare affair, right? And when it is, there's usually some controversy around it, right? In my mind, I can think of a couple. You remember Chris Weidman versus oh crap, he's in Bellator.
I know what you're talking
Gegard Mousasi, right?
Yep.
So there was some controversy. Oh, was his knee up? Did he get up like the? It turned out that it was a completely legal knee. Fine.
And that was like 2 months after the rule change too.
It was. Yes. Yeah. And then you remember the fight with Jeremy.
That
Jeremy
was
Stephens?
right on the line. It was.
It was super close. His knee just came up. Fine. And then you've got oh my. Why am I blanking? Jeremy Stephens, when he kneed, it was I want to say Smith, but I don't think that's that guy's name. Anyway, he threw a knee, but it didn't land, and he grazed his head on the way back down. Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, there's usually some controversy around it, and the fighter was going for something else, and he didn't
some kind of transition chaos. Yeah.
So I just want to set that up because it's very rare, and there's usually some explanation that you could kind of make for the fighter who threw the knee. So last night we had this guy Brock Weaver. I'm not familiar with him. I'm not that big into the underground scene. So we had Brock Weaver, who is a Native American, and he reps it pretty hard. He's got the feather in the hair and everything. Like, cool, man. That's freaking awesome. Like that's an interesting storyline to portray in the UFC. That's fun. And he's fighting this guy Vargas. Like, the guy, who it was doesn't matter. He got kneed in the stomach, turned around, ended up on the ground, and then immediately, I might be conflating these two. But anyway, he's on the ground, clearly on the ground, and Vargas just blasts him in the head with a knee, and clearly he's concussed, like he's out of it. And rightfully so, the referee stops it, DQs him. If you watch it back on the replay, that
was a heinous one. That was pretty bad.
There was zero excuse, zero. I mean, listen, we're human. We can make mistakes. He honestly, if I was going to give him an excuse, he probably just had a brain fart. He was just going at it, and he was just trying to throw everything and get him out of there. Fine, dude, shit happens. Okay, I'm not going to condemn this guy because he did something one time. All right, fine. And I don't. In his history, like, nothing has been brought up about him being a dirty fighter.
If anything, it's just a sign of immaturity, getting caught up in the moment. Like, that's probably the most likely reason for it.
Yeah.
Like, if he's just not seasoned in the game and he hasn't had a bunch of big spotlights on him, and all of a sudden, because I hadn't heard him from before, so this might have been his,
Rodrigo Vargas?
Biggest fight of his career. It might have just been a little bit of, ring shock, getting caught up in the moment, and, like I said, brain fart.
Well, that was Brock's first fight in the UFC. The other guy who got disqualified, or who ended up winning via disqualification. So, like, that was his legit first UFC fight. So, I mean, he's got some decent fights in the UFC. That's not bad. Okay. I mean, okay. So anyway, yeah, Vargas is he's not a totally inexperienced fighter. He's had plenty of fights, and like I said, I'll just chalk it up to a brain fart, whatever. And he wasn't afterwards. Like, I don't remember him fighting as much about it, and he was disappointed in himself too. And that's fine. It happens. Yeah. Super rare, whatever. And then on the main freaking card, we cannot just mention the knee because that did happen, and we've already set that up. Can we talk about what the hell's going on with Diego Sanchez. I don't know him personally, and I do remember him from The Ultimate Fighter because my dad actually was watching that show quite a
Yeah.
lot, so I do remember him. And he was always kind of like a, kind of a kooky guy, a little weird. He does
I
weird, fun interviews.
I remember watching him on that season, just when it was happening. He was
So
an interesting fellow.
yeah, that's what I mean. Like he's always
Yeah.
been kind of kooky. And the lead up to this fight was kind of like oh, you know, uh Michelle likes to come out and dance. Like, it's not going to get me. Watch me. I'm going to be weird too. I'm like, all right, I believe you. You're a freaking weird guy. And he walks into the cage like a peacock with his chest out, and he's like walking like this. And I was like, all right, cool. I mean, this is strange.
Yeah.
Whatever. And then when they like when he's walking around, he does this bubble thing, and he's like blowing bubbles and blah, 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 like spitting. And like I just did that, and I think I spit a little bit. Like I don't know what that was. And then in the fight, I remember having multiple moments where I went through like the roller coaster of emotions, where I'm sitting there like, all right, this is fucking weird. And then Diego comes out with that like the the somersault kick. I'm like, oh, cool, all right, fun. And then I see him kind of getting beat up a little bit on the feet, but they're going not really back and forth. It was clearly Michelle's round, whatever. In the second round, I go from like, oh, hey, this is a fun little circus thing to like, oh no, Diego, like, oh,
So,
come on, man.
do you remember when BJ Penn came out in that one fight and just like,
Stood straight up in the air. That was
yes,
Frankie
like
Edgar.
feet, 6 inches apart from each other?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that the Frankie Edgar one?
Yes. And he
Yeah.
got taken down immediately.
Like Frankie just took one look at him and was like, okay, so this is what we're doing? All right.
He's like, I mean, are you gonna try a little bit, or all right, fine, I'll just take you down.
Yeah.
So I saw that part, and then I'm watching him get kind of torn apart, but his cardio is still so good, and I'm gonna give Diego a ton of credit here because he avoided a lot of the big shots from Michelle, and he took a few, and he was able to stay in there, and he's been getting a little chinny. You have 5,000 fights, and that starts to happen. So,
Yeah.
and he had this bad breakup with Jackson Winklejohn, as well as a lot of fighters these days have. And I remember in the third round just thinking, like, oh, dude, please stop taking this punishment, man. Like, dude, Michelle's so big, and he's just cracking him, and it's terrible. And then I read the transcripts from like what his corner was saying. His one man corner, who's kind of like he's like a guru. I've seen.
Was this Conor McGregor's movement coach from back in the day? Did
No.
he find that dude down the street in LA?
No. Hey, that guy's name is Ido Portal.
I'm sure he's a great guy.
No. He had a basis in reality. His thing was about planting your feet, staying balanced, staying even. At least those things. And also, I don't think Ito was ever in Connor's corner. I think Connor used him like he was studying fencing. Remember? Like he was studying all kinds of weird things, and he was trying to get. I'm okay with that. Like if you want to venture out and whatever works for you, man. If you go to a spiritual healer and that guy teaches you something that you didn't know before and it's beneficial to your fight, fantastic. Don't put Barney in your freaking corner, man. Like like I don't want the guy in my corner to be like, "Hey, all right, the shadow. You got to be like the shadows, okay? Stay sticky. Bees. Like what the dude, like you're not because Mark Henry, from that's Frankie Edgar's camp, where Frankie Edgar comes from. Mark Henry has those things. Like he'll say a word, he'll go like Pikachu,
combination code.
Yeah,
basically.
right. Yeah.
Yeah.
He'll go like Pikachu, and then Frankie Edgar just unloads like a 3-piece combo, right? With a
I think like TJ Dillashaw does a lot of that stuff too.
Right, fine. Yeah. That is a great way to compress a lot of information into a small phrase that's easily recognizable from your coach. That was not what was going on. I am not giving this guy any freaking credit. He's a Looney Tune. He's the only one in Diego's corner, and he's giving him no advice. Trevor Whitman was on he was like, "What are you doing, Diego?" Like he's basically saying like, "I love you, Diego. Go train with someone else." And then in the third round,
There had to have been someone in the audience close enough that was hearing the corner that knew infinitely more than him, that was probably considering like, should I get up and help Diego? Like, I know I'm not technically in his corner legally, but I feel like I should get up and do something. Like,
Just some
I was waiting
dude.
for another fighter sitting in the audience just to like, take off
I
the
know.
jacket and just be like, Diego, I'm here. It's gonna be okay.
Just John Jones yelling from the crowd. Hook, throw the hook. Legs, circle out. Like
Yeah,
that
just
was
like out of nowhere, you see Matt Serra just in his corner, just like,
yeah.
Diego, it's gonna be okay. I'm gonna get you through this.
I would have loved, dude. I would have loved any of that to happen because what did happen, um, was that third round was just I'm just gonna call it what it was, man. It was just a shit show for Diego. Like he was just getting picked apart on the feet. Michelle was working the body, cracking him hard, and then gets him. I don't think it was a clinch, but maybe it was a clinch. I remember. So I was conflating the two with Brock Weaver. So this one I do remember. He hits him with a couple knees. Diego spins around, ends up against the cage, and he's on his knees. Weaver was on his butt. Diego was on his knees, and dude, Michelle just cracked him right in the face. Like he wasn't aiming for his shoulder. I don't want to hear it. He said, "Oh, dude, he was up. He was up." Man, if you,
No.
dude, if you thought that again, like you can chalk that up because I will, based off of like how he fights and how he enters the octagon with the choreographed dances and stuff. Like, dude, fine, but that just shows me, you're a high energy guy and you can't control your tools. That all of that would have been whatever. But then after the fight, Michelle is like protesting and he's pissed off that Diego doesn't want to continue. It's like, dude, you broke the rules. You cannot be mad at an opponent. Like if you went in there with like a chair and hit him, and then he's like, dude, I don't want to fight you anymore. Oh, why not? I only did one foul.
Yeah.
It's like that's not okay.
And especially when it comes to something that can concuss someone or daze someone and just
He cut
completely
him.
change the fight. Yeah,
He
like
cut him. There was a gash over on his forehead, and this is the part that really made me sad. Like I was actively not I was not welling up to the point where like like crying, but I felt terrible. I got this queasy feeling watching that, like when the doctor was in there and Diego asks I think it was Jason Herzog. He asked him, "Hey, if I don't want to fight, is it going to be a DQ?" And he's like, "I can tell you that this is the last round of the fight. He landed an illegal shot, and I can give you time to recover." And Jason did his job, and Diego's like, he's like, "All you got to do is tell me if you can continue." And like the look in Diego's face when he's just like he's out of it,
he was done. Yeah.
and he's out of it, and he's like mumbling, and then he says, "Dude, it was an illegal shot," and they're like, "Okay, can you continue?" And he's like, "Oh," and he's like, "It's an illegal shot in the blood in my eye, and I can't see." Okay, I'm not. Let me say like this thing first, and I'm gonna circle back.
Yeah.
Dude, it was not in your eye. You could see fine. I think it was part. I think he was out of it, and I don't think he's. I'm gonna circle back now. I don't think he's a quitter. Right. I don't. Nothing in his history shows that he's a quitter. I don't think that
You
you
don't
should
spend
have to
25 years
continue.
in the UFC and then get called a quitter. Like,
Yeah, and I don't want him to like. Or I don't want people to like get on this train where like, oh, why didn't you do that? And it's like, well, he threw an illegal shot, and there's no guarantee that he was going to win that fight. He wasn't going to win by DQ. It could have been a no contest because it was so late in the fight. So there's no guarantee that you're going to get the win. But if you it's like when you get poked in the eye, man. It's just Jeremy Stevens, uh, not Yancy. Was it Yancy Medeiros? No, Yancy Medeiros fought on this
or
card.
like the Mark or the Matt Mitrione, like that fucking.
Yeah. Like he
Yeah.
got poked so hard in the eye, like it like swole up and he couldn't see anymore,
He
man.
looked like a Rocky movie. Yeah. Like,
Yeah, it's one of those things. Like it's super unfortunate.
but
I
Michelle
don't
also threw the knee,
that
and that's the
yeah.
problem. Like,
So
it's not on Diego.
no. I'm not blaming Diego. And like I've already like that's what I said. I mean Michelle was so upset, not at himself. He was upset at the ref and he was upset at Diego. dude, fuck you.
Yeah.
No, I'm serious. You cannot come in with that attitude. You cannot. All you can hope that they want to continue and that they want to tough it out. You can hope that, but you can't be mad. You can't be mad at him. You can be mad at yourself for throwing the shot. That is acceptable. If he went in there and he was like, "Oh no," it's like when someone throws a groin shot, and they land.
And then they're like upset that someone's taking the full time to recover.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
most of the time, what you see is like they'll throw a groin shot. They're like, "Oh man, dude, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Like I didn't mean to do that. And it was bad." Or do an eye poke. Like, "Oh, dude," it's like, "Hey, you got to control your tools. Those are fouls." Like you like, but
Yeah.
they clearly they're upset at themselves. Remember when Tony Ferguson punched Cowboy after the end of the round,
Yes.
right? What is the first thing? What is the first thing he said? Dude, I don't want to win like this. Like, I'm not a dirty fighter. I don't do this. I feel so bad. Let Cowboy talk. You know, that's that is how you treat
A
like a
mistake.
foul that
Yeah.
yeah. When you make a mistake, that it's okay to make mistakes. It happens, man.
Yeah. Just
You
own
just
it.
yeah. Like oh man, that got me worse. That got me worse than anything else in that fight was one. I had just so I went from being like, oh cool, this is a circus to like, oh, this is kind of making me sad to like, oh no, and I felt sick, and then I got really angry. I'm like, what the screw you, man.
Just 3 rounds of emotions.
I know, and that wasn't even the main event. And then I get to the main event, and I'm just like, come on, Corey, and it gets knocked. I'm like, oh, all right.
UFC is often very disappointing to me. I've noticed that, like, the more emotionally tied I am to the result of a fight, or the more I want something to happen, the more I'm
Oh,
often disappointed. Yeah.
yeah, it's. I've been getting better about that lately.
Yeah.
I'm able to still root for. I have favorite fighters. I
Oh,
enjoy
yes.
watching certain people fight, but I've been able to be more more.
Objective. Just like,
Well,
yeah.
I want to say objective. Like you know what I've been trying to remove a lot of my emotion while I'm watching the fight. Like in the lead up, I can be, rooting for a guy. And
Yep.
after the fight, I could be disappointed in the result or a performance. But during the fight, like I try to take myself out of it because I'm really trying to focus on who's winning this because I noticed I would just get so upset at bad decisions or I would get
Mhm.
and like they're not even like my favorite fighter or something I was super interested in, but I would get like emotionally invested as the fight was going on. And then like, oh, I believe this guy should win. I believe it. Like, yes, go this guy. And then he doesn't get the decision. Even if I was totally wrong, I would never know because I'm rooting for a dude and
Yep.
everything he does, like I'm like, "Ooh." It's like when a local fighter fights, like all you hear, like a Brazilian fighter in Brazil, all you hear is like cheers when they wing punches or they like
Yep.
do a high five. They're like, whoa, hell yeah, it's this guy. And then like when the other dude does anything, they're just nothing but
Boo.
silence. Yeah. No, they scream, "You're gonna die,"
Oh
is what
yeah, I
they do.
forgot about that one. Yeah. The chant.
Yeah. A bunch of people speaking in Portuguese, like, "You're gonna die, clown." Nice.
Yep. Ah, but
Yeah,
yeah,
there was a
interesting
oh,
fight card.
so there was one other fight that I wasn't disappointed. The fights
No,
were
yeah, no,
okay.
just
It's fine.
interesting. Yeah.
And they're free fights. I didn't pay for it. It's on ESPN Plus. Cool beans. Um, Lando Venata versus Yancy Medeiros. So Lando, if you don't remember, he was the one who stepped up on short notice against Tony Ferguson
Yes.
about 4 years ago, I believe, 5 years ago, and he cracked him early in the first round and he I think he put him on his back. Yeah, like he almost. I know almost winning is the same thing as losing. Fine, I'm
But
not.
still, it's impressive. Yeah.
Yeah, like he was closer to finishing Tony Ferguson than anybody has been in the past 10 years.
Yeah.
Like, right? And it's probably because he stepped up on short notice and he didn't have a lot of things and he's an explosive fighter and you can qualify it however you want. He landed a good shot and ended up having a really good fight with him. And then since then, uh, I mean, I noted it while the fight was going on, but he's a very explosive fighter who moves a lot on his feet. So he uses a lot of lateral movement, a lot of backpedaling in the cage. He moves a ton, and you notice as the fight goes on in that second round, like his movement isn't as good anymore, and that's what he uses to avoid the shots.
Mm.
So he becomes more stationary and hittable, and that's what I was waiting for Yancey to pick up on, and that like Yancey just couldn't get it going, and Lando fought a very technical fight, and I'm kind of excited because I like Lando. He's a really interesting cat, especially like in the octagon, and yet again another guy at 155 who take that skill set to
Yeah.
most of the other divisions, and you're looking at a top 10 fighter.
Yeah. Probably still best division in the UFC right now.
It goes back and forth for me.
Yeah.
I remember Tyron Woodley made a good case for 170.
There's a few times 170 hasn't been exciting in some sort of fashion.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Classically, I believe 155 has been one of the deepest and hardest divisions in the UFC.
Yes.
Even when they got rid of it. Wait, did they get rid of 155?
Yes.
That's when BJ Penn left. Yes.
Yes.
Like it's just a hotbed for really good. It's the perfect weight.
Yes.
I don't know if it's because what is the average walking around?
I think it's the perfect athletic weight for the average height.
Yes, that's what I was about to say.
That's because it's like, what's the average height? Like 5'9"?
In the US,
like
5'11".
Is it 5'11"?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah. So in terms of like athletic weights, we're carrying around enough muscle to like work it. I'd say 155 to 170 is gonna be where you get the most.
Yeah,
like
and
yeah,
you see
the
that.
most competition in general. Yeah.
Yeah, like those divisions are. I mean, we went over it before. Like it's just a murderer's row in the top 15, man. And like I think what you said is exactly right. That's what I was about to say. Is there's a like the walking around weight of your average man in the United States, who's not okay.
Yes.
Not
Let's not say average.
not average man. Let's say average athletic man. Let's go with that. Right.
All right.
So
fair.
let's say it's 180. Okay, 185, maybe up to 200. Well, look at that. Look who's like you're cutting those guys who are at 200. A lot of those guys fight. Those guys fight at 170.
Yeah.
And then you got guys in the 180 range.
Cut down to 155.
Cut down to 155. Then there you go. That's how you fill out those divisions, and it's been like, oh my God, I cannot believe we have to wait a whole other month for the fight that I refuse to speak the name of, like Voldemort.
Don't even bring it up. We're not going to talk about it until after it happens.
Oh man,
I don't even want to do like a preview talking about who we think's going to win. We're just going to let it happen
until the fight before. We should do a podcast like right before.
Even then, I'm scared. Oh, God. I don't want any wires popping out of nowhere. Yes. We're going all wireless for this UFC.
Bluetooth only.
Bluetooth cameras only.
Man, why is this video so shitty?
just deal with it. That's what we get.
Yeah, like I would rather have them fight in a barn with no cameras and then just come out and tell us who won.
Just film it on a cell phone. All right, just World Star. 155 World Star belt.
Yeah, there's a lot going on in the next couple of months, and then you add on top of that the possibility of Jon Jones fighting again. I mean Reyes. I think Reyes is still healthy. I don't think he got a real suspension. I think he got one. He probably got one of those mandatory like 3-month suspensions or whatever.
So yeah, I think him v Santos is probably his next.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think just off the cuff, I'm not seeing how Santos wins that fight. I think Reyes is much more dynamic. I think he has more tools, and he uses them. Plus, as we saw with the Jones fight, he can put his team, and he can put together a pretty good game plan. And knowing your opponent, there's tons of tape on Santos. They pretty much know what he's going to come out with. He could probably do some offensive wrestling in that fight.
Yeah, I'd be interested to see. I think that'll be a good fight. I'm interested.
He's also a naturally bigger dude.
I'm excited for. Did you see the Yoel Romero flip?
Oh, that's right, that fight.
I know.
Yeah, I get uneasy. when I talk about Yoel Romero. Like,
I
there's,
know.
you just have so
The,
much.
the Kennedy thing is always going to be
It's not
a
even that,
black.
man. Just like the fight after that, they dumped water on the freaking can. Like they dumped water and ice. Do
I
you remember
know.
that? And they had to go clean up the
Yes.
ice. It's like,
Wasn't that Jacare right after that? It's him versus
oh
Jacare. Yep.
yes, he lost that fight. Okay,
Yep. I
nope,
know. I know.
he got the
I know.
decision. That was on the McGregor. That was on the McGregor Aldo card.
Oh yeah, that was.
Yeah, yeah, that was a while ago, and I do remember I watched that fight, and I think he
Because
landed like
Jacare
one
was
or
on
two
the
big shots.
upswing too. Like
Yep,
Jacare was, he was on the cusp of,
he still has not fought for a title in the UFC, I believe.
which is crazy.
Well, it's if he won that fight against Yoel, and then remember he fought against Whitaker, and Whitaker
Yep.
beat the brakes off of him and put a
True.
stop to that.
Hmm.
But that's before that's before
Ooh,
anybody knew about Whitaker being as good as he was at 185. So
I wonder how big is Jacare? Because now I'm thinking, I wonder if he could go
he
up to
fights at
205.
205. He did.
He
He
does now?
lost to Jan.
Oh, that's right. Damn. Come on, Jacare. I want to see someone with a ground game go after John Jones.
Yeah, he's not big.
No.
He's not big enough to really deal with those big guys at 205. I think Yoel at 205 would be interesting, but I think his
I think he
style.
loses. He can't carry it over to 205.
I'm sure he could beat a significant portion of the UFC roster at 205. I
Yeah.
think when you get into the top 10, he'd probably run into some snags. People could not just game plan, but also um,
His
deal with his
athleticism.
explosiveness. Yeah,
Yeah. I don't
because
know.
those guys in the top 10, like they're dealing with monsters all the time, and at 205, his punching power is obviously still going to be great, but his fight style of wait, explode,
Yep.
explode. I think at 205 with a bigger dude could probably take advantage of that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Uh,
at 185, he's gigantic.
he's unbelievable.
Yeah. All right, so you said you wanted to ask about what I'm doing for working out now.
Yeah, I was just curious.
Okay, so I have the station. It's not a stationary bike, but I sent you the picture of it. It's this one. Ugh. Oh, it's blurry because I have blur on. Anyway,
Womp.
there's who cares? It's a freaking road bike. Um, so I have the road bike at the house. I just got it last week from my buddy. He was gonna toss it out anyway, so um, I've been riding that to warm up before I go to the gym. So I'm on there for 10 minutes. I go to the gym. I usually lift Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So I'm in a training phase now where I'm coming off of just I don't even know how to explain it, but just feeling like icky. It's weird. I know that's not the most scientific term, but I've
No.
just my body just hasn't felt like it's there since I right halfway through my senior year of college. So last year I kind of like my body just started not being able to cope with as much output as like because I was still working out every day. Remember when we were training for the 100 mile, like I was
Work.
putting in 100 miles a month, and which isn't a lot for some people. I understand, but
That no, that's a lot for 99.9% of
yeah.
people.
So I mean, I weighed when I started that. I started out at 205 pounds, and I knew I was like, hey, I got to lose some weight to get some weight off my knees so I don't blow them out while I'm running. And I lost a lot of weight, and I'm guessing my muscle. Oh my God, why can I not say words? My muscle skeletal structure changed quite a bit when I was doing endurance training, and when I went back to lifting more consistently, it's just my body felt out of whack, and I just started feeling better like 3 weeks ago,
Mhm.
and then I got the flu, which is fine. It happens.
Yeah.
I got kids, so I had the flu for 2 days, which is normal. I feel like crap one day, then I kind of recovering the next day, and then by the third day, I'm just like whatever. And then on the third day, I got worse, and then my neck, so like my glands right here, like right
Swell
here
up.
in my neck, they started swelling up, and then I couldn't breathe. So I went to the doctor, and he goes to look at my throat, and he like looks back there, and he's like, "Oh, it doesn't look like strep throat." I'm like, "Oh, that's good news." And he's like, "Yeah, uh, if it's strep throat, like, we'll probably." He's like, "Well, let's run a test just to be safe." And I'm like, "Yes, please, because I can't breathe." And he's so he's like, "Oh yeah, if it's strep, I'll be back. If not, it'll just be a nurse, and we'll discharge you, and then we'll just like what happens over the next couple of days." And he comes back like 5 minutes later, like, "Oh hey, look, it's strep throat." I'm like, "All right, cool beans."
Hooray.
So I got on antibiotics. So here's what's interesting: antibiotics like erythromycin
Hmm.
classically make you feel like crap, right? And
Yes.
really like
Just
exhausted. Dude, I felt amazing.
hmm.
It was weird. Yeah, Monday, like the first day I got them, it's the same. I couldn't breathe that well, and I went to the gym, kind of just like pushed through it. Tuesday, dude, I felt like a world beater. Like I went to the gym and I'm like bouncing around. I'm like, hell yeah, feel great. So that being said, I hung up my heavy bag at the gym, so I do about 45 minutes to an hour rounds on the. I'll do like 3 minute rounds on the bag with gloves on. Then I take the gloves off and I do like I focus on kicks and trying to open up my hips, get back to moving like that, and then I do other cardio in between. So I'll do like body hardening, but also practicing kicks for 2 minutes, and then I go do like battle ropes, or I'll do sprawls or I'll throw a medicine ball. I'll do other cardio stuff, and then once I'm done doing that for about 5 minutes, then I put my gloves back on and I go rounds on the bag again. I do that for about 45 minutes to an hour on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So Monday I do leg day because unlike a lot of other people, I actually enjoy doing legs. It's not a big deal to me.
Yeah. That I don't understand why people hate it.
I
Maybe it's
get
a
it.
thing that comes with age.
Oh, that could be because I used to
Yeah.
hate leg day. Um, but I think part of it is my legs have always trailed behind. It's not that I wasn't ever strong. I mean, I've had like decent strength in my legs. I'm not a world class athlete. Let me just put that out there before the one person who watches this who disagrees with me. So, I'm not a world class athlete to qualify all this, but I've been generally athletic my whole life. I've been able to run pretty fast. I was a sprinter in middle school. I gave up track in high school and I focused on tennis and football. I was a wide receiver and a corner in high school. Wasn't great, like I wasn't the starter, but I was always able to hold my own at 5'2" and under 100 pounds. Um, just generally athletic, but my legs have always trailed behind, and I never focused on them to catch them up. So when I started bodybuilding, I remember after my first show, really focusing on my legs and kind of falling in love with squats. And then a couple years ago, when I started powerlifting and focusing on a different regimen, I remember falling in love with deadlifting, and I was like, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So
I know what you meant.
yeah, putting up big numbers is it's just fun. So I remember like putting up big numbers on squats, deadlifts, doing like weighted lunges, and just a lot of stuff like functional movements with my legs, and like having a lot of fun with it. So you need a ton of energy for the largest muscle group in your body, which is your legs, and that's why I do it on Mondays because my weekends tend to be a little bit easier. Um, then on Wednesday, I usually do like a push focus day. So chest, front delts, and a little bit of tries, but I usually don't do arms on a big muscle day. Then Friday, I'll do back and pull focus stuff. Like I'll do like my heavy movements like rack pulls, building up like um, my lower back, and also focusing on shocking my central nervous system and getting my body used to like even my hands, like getting them used to holding heavy weight again. Um, and then on the weekends it's kind of potpourri, just whatever I feel like doing. This Saturday I just went rounds on the bag for like an hour and a half. It,
Nice.
yeah, and like I'll try to do arms now and then, so because I'm still vain as shit, and I care
Of
about
course.
how
Yeah.
I can't get rid of it. I watched I fell in love with lifting when I was a kid before I even had weights. I remember watching Rocky 3 over and over and over again, watching those training scenes on TV, and then just sitting in my like grandparents' like living room doing sit-ups. Or when I remember, um, uh, I've always had like a thing where I stay up late. So, like even when I was a kid, I couldn't go to bed at 8 o'clock, which was my bedtime forever, and I would get up after everybody was asleep, and I would go do wall push-ups. I put my feet up on the wall, and I would do uh, push-ups like that. I would do hundreds of sit-ups, just because like I wanted abs and I just wanted to be muscular. It was completely vain. It had no functional. I had like it wasn't functional training at all. It was just about looking good, and that has not gone away, no matter how old I get or how many kids I'm gonna have.
I know exactly what you mean. I think that kind of starts a little bit for everybody. Like the vain focus. I don't think there's a aside from kids that are really athletic and like really good at sports right off the bat. Like maybe they get a little bit different focus when they start out, but I think a lot of people like, especially going into high school, like you just want to look good. You barely know what you're doing.
Yeah. So part of I had this conversation. I don't know if I told you about it. I went to a guy who he does a lot like body work for a lot of strongman and powerlifters. So he's digging his elbow into like my fascial tissue, and he's breaking up a lot of the um, bad mobility problems I had. Like, did you know your toes aren't supposed to touch? They're supposed to be spread out. So my big toe, like, has always touched my second toe, and he was like, "Well, that's not good." So he like took his fingers and his elbow, and he like broke up all the tissue in between the two, and he broke it up for like 30 minutes on each foot. So like my toes don't touch anymore, and he did a lot of work on my body. And I remember talking to him. He's so well educated and well versed in his field, and he knows so much about the body. Like I was a personal trainer, and obviously I have enough knowledge, both formal training and informal, just looking things up about the human body and the muscles and how everything how everything functions. And I remember he's just a wealth of knowledge. So I just kept asking him questions. And then at one point, I remember asking him, I remember just because he was making me swear a lot and like almost to tears, which my daughter's got a real kick out of for a while. And
And I was
I
listening
remember,
to that whole thing. I just had to keep my computer
no, it's
from
fine.
dying.
And then I remember asking him, I'm like, hey, do you ever? His name's Brian. I was like, hey, Brian, do you ever wish that you didn't know any of this stuff, that you could just go about your life and just not care about how your body's functioning, and you could be like everyone else and just be blissfully ignorant? And he looked at me and like no one had ever asked him that before. And he goes like, yeah, yeah, I do. It's like, it's one of
It's
those.
it's a problem. It's a legitimate problem.
Yeah, and I'm not the smartest person, right? I'm not this genius who can instantly figure things out, and I don't have like this unyielding focus or crazy work ethic. I'm not exceptional compared to like the ultra exceptional, right?
Mhm.
But I have little doses of that in my daily life and who I am as a person. And honestly, it just keeps me from being content. Like
Yeah.
I can't stop, man. Like I finished school, and my first thought wasn't like, all right, I did it. It was like, man, that took forever and I felt like a waste of time. I got to go back to school and get my master's degree. Like, I got a job as an engineer, and my first thought wasn't, all right, I made it. I did it. Like I had I think when my
Yeah,
boss
I know
oh,
exactly what you mean because pretty much I almost feel like I can't. I think like 2 or 3 years is about as long as I can like stand to be doing something, and I'm still like the moment I even start doing it, I start thinking about all right, is what am I going to go and do on after this? Like I know I'm probably going to do this for a couple of years, but you know, 3 months into it, I'm already planning what's going to be my next step after this, and where do I want to go after this.
see, you're way better than I am. It's worse for me, man, and I'm not here to have a pity party for myself. It's a problem I have to deal with, and it's something that I need to get I just got to get over it and quit being like this sometimes because it really, it puts me in tough positions. Um, and I'm not, how do I want to say this? I'm not one of those people who like, oh, when my back's against the wall, that's when I do my best work. Like I'm gonna get in there and I'm gonna show them who's like, no, I don't need that. Like that's not my thing. But I was watching the movie Warrior today while I was on the bike. I did like 2 hours on the bike, so I was like, I'm gonna put a movie on. I'm gonna ride the whole time. So I was watching Warrior, and also his name's Brendan, and he has two girls, and he's a physics teacher. Come on, man! Like
I know.
you can't hit any closer to home. You can't hit any closer to home. So, like when he's like about to lose the house, and like, it just reminds me of like when I went through that stuff, and it gives me that initial push to do something better, and like, because I'm, it's not just me anymore, man. If it was just
Yep.
me, I remember being alone. I do, and I remember, not having to take care of anybody else. I don't take care of it. My wife takes care of everybody. She does more than I could ever do, you know. And like I remember being alone and not having. I had all the thoughts and all the feeling, like everything that I have now, but I had nobody counting on me, so it didn't matter if I succeeded. So I kind of just like fell into obscurity and just did whatever I wanted. And then the second I found out, hey, you're gonna have a kid. Oh, okay. And then it hit me. I'm like, oh shit, I have nothing. Like I can't. I don't have a good job. I don't have a house. How am I gonna support anyone? And that kind of like kicked me into like like actual gear and made me give a crap. So
Yeah.
that carried me through to where I am now. It didn't I didn't sit. I've had a couple good jobs. I've had bad jobs. I've had like my body's been broken, and I've got to the point now where I finally hit a spot where I had some semblance of how I felt when I was single. Not single, but like, I didn't have responsibilities, and the feeling isn't like, oh, I could do whatever I want. It's more like like I have enough to where I could take my foot off the gas and I'd be okay.
Yeah. You you hit a
But
you hit a good cruising altitude.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, Mr. Air Force, we'll go with that one. Dingus.
Just saying. Plenty of room to get higher, but
We are currently cruising at 30,000 feet, and you have a decent paying job. Your daughters love you, and you have a home to go to. So go ahead and just take your shoes off, and relax.
yeah.
Yeah,
Maybe
there's
get a snack,
not,
take a little nap.
dude. There's none of that. I can't, man. I just,
No,
dude, it's a problem.
I feel you though. I do. I've been loving my. I will say, back in the workout thing, I've been really digging the schedule I've gotten into with it.
What are you doing?
So the one annoying thing is obviously like I'm vain, and I would love to just do nothing but go to the gym and lift all day every day. But like I do love cardio and I love running. But like by requirement, I have to maintain some semblance of like I can run a certain speed and be happy with it. Yeah, just being able to maintain that, especially as I get older. So I do Mondays off because the course I teach right now, that's the busiest day, and that's the most likely chance of me going from like a solid like 6:30 a.m. all the way to 4:30 p.m. or later. So if there's a day that like I'm gonna have off and not want to worry about working out, like Monday's my day for that. And then Tuesday I do a leg conditioning day, so it's usually either some squats, like not heavy, but like some light squats, Romanian deadlifts, then a bunch of kettlebell conditioning. So I'll do like a 40-20 split, so or an every minute on the minute workout, just something to like do some cardio conditioning. Then Wednesday is upper body day, but I do only body weight. So like,
Okay.
yeah. But I keep it interesting, so I'm not just sitting there doing pull-ups and push-ups all goddamn day. So I'll do like, some mix of that, handstand push-ups, ring stuff. Just
Oh, rings.
oh yes, I just stuff where I can change it up and just keep it interesting. So it's kind of like my upper body gymnastics day, basically. And then Thursday is cardio day. Then Friday, usually we do unit PT, but whether or not I do that, I just make that my like heavy loaded legs day. Because usually unit PT isn't that bad anyway. Yeah. So I
I was
pretty much
about
just
to
use
say
that. Yeah. Pretty much.
That's
and
that's active
Fridays,
recovery.
exactly. So I just use it as a warm up, and then Friday is my like loaded leg day, and then Saturday is my loaded upper body day because I can really take my time with it. So that's where I do most of my actual like upper body lifting. And then Sunday, me and my wife go to the gym and we do a hard cardio and core day, and we'll bring the gloves and hit the heavy bag on that day. And the gym that we go to is pretty much empty. Like we'll usually get there and there's maybe one other person, and it's a big gym too. So Sundays is like our playground day at the gym.
Do you ever have a day where you're like you kind of like you really take off?
Monday, like I just straight up don't work out at all on Monday.
Okay, all right, okay.
Yeah, I'll do like some recovery yoga or stuff like that, but Monday's like my solid off day. And then Thursdays, I mean, it's a light cardio day. Like if I'm getting ready for a PT test, I'll go harder, but if I miss Thursday, like I don't feel bad about it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the gym that I go to, it's called Surge to New Levels. We were a small warehouse gym. I've been there for about 2 years now, and it's we just moved to a larger location, and it's like a family there. They're
Nice.
the owner, his name's Sergio, and his fiance's named Jackie, and they're there every day. You know, they train people there. It's a powerlifting gym. It's a small community. It's like a really small, tight-knit group. And we just moved to a larger location, like I said. And I say we because that's what happened. They asked for people to help. They're like, hey,
Nice.
guys, you know, like we picked up the turf. We laid down new turf. We cleaned everything. We moved all the equipment, 2 monoliths, everything, right? We moved everything to the new gym, cleaned it up, and made it nice. And I tell that story to some people, and their first reaction is like, wait, do you work there? Or are you like just a member? Like, why would you do that? I'm like, yeah, like that's not.
I would love to have a gym like that. Like that's you get that community feel.
Yeah, it's fantastic. And everybody there, you know, not everybody is like in your face and like, hey, welcome to the gym. Hey, my name's Steven. I'd love to help you with. No, it's not like that. There's lots of quiet people, just, you know, like anywhere else. But also the gym membership is a little bit higher than your like Planet Fitness, right? So it keeps a lot of the riffraff out. And then there's also there's no mirrors except in the bathroom.
Interesting.
So this whole thing where like people are like, oh, I need mirrors to check my form. Do you? Do you care? Do you, Carol? Or are you just checking out your butt and taking pictures? Like, don't give me that, right? There's only one lift where you can really check your form and pay attention, and that's squats, because otherwise you're not going to be able to check your form, because if you're doing it right, you're not going to be able to look at a mirror while you're doing it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and it's a total open policy with like cameras and everything else too. So like people record their lifts and they check, like you can tell when they're watching themselves, they're not like, hell yeah, look at my abs or look at my bicep. Like they're looking like, oh crap, I didn't go deep enough on the squat, or man, I hitched on my deadlift, or man, my back rounded. Like you can really tell they're very focused on what they're doing, and it's a great environment. It's also like I've been pretty strong the last few years, and oftentimes I'm the strongest one actively at the gym that I'm at, right? And for some people that might get them going, knowing like I'm going to lift more weight than anybody else in the gym right now. That's definitely not the case where I go. I'm freaking weak as shit. I see people putting up, like I've seen people do 700-pound squats, 700-pound deadlifts. Yeah. 4 and 500-pound 4 and 500-pound presses. And also, do you know who works out there? The Lilla Bridges. So if you don't know who they are a family. They're probably the strongest family in the world. Their dad, senior, he's a power lifter from, a little bit back in the day, but he's one of the strongest people ever to live. And his 3 sons are also like some of the strongest people to ever live. Just like their totals, like they have an over 2,000 pound. I think they have a 2,200. I think Eric, he has a 2,200 pound total.
Jeez.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. He works out there sometimes. They have their own gym as well, but they also work out there. So very rarely do I go in there and feel like I'm the biggest badass. So it's nice to see other people lifting like that and being like, man, a human body can do that. Sweet. Maybe I can get my body to. I can't do that. There's no way I'm gonna do that. But that's okay.
It's okay. Yeah, I'm not either.
Yeah.
Do you know what's been a game changer for me recently too? Do you have woodways or salt runners there?
We have one that the pedal fell off of. It's one of the reasons I got a
Oh.
bike. Why I got a bike for the house.
Now the wood, like those woodway treadmills.
No.
Yeah,
I know what you're talking about. The curved
Yes.
ones,
Yes.
the self-powered ones. Okay.
Yeah.
No, we do not have one of those. Do you know who does? The same guy who gave me that bike. It's in his garage, and I went over there one day, and I'm like, we were talking about some work stuff, and I was like, oh man, like you have a self-powered treadmill. Where did you get, like, do you know how good these things are? And he goes like, I know they're good. Look how many boxes it can hold. Like, damn it.
I'll take it.
So I mean,
seriously, that thing has been a game changer for me. Even just like building up to it, and for the first time, I ran on a treadmill just because I had to for like a unit PT thing that was powered, and it was like nothing. I started cranking the speed up to speeds that I'd never run on a treadmill before.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, cool. I've never really like drastically increased my running speed before, even when I was like crazy distance running. Still never really like massively increased my running speed. And the difference I've noticed from since I started doing like 20, 30-minute runs on a woodway to, moving to outside or just a regular treadmill. Holy shit. That thing is.
Yeah, it's. I wish I knew more about the biomechanics, but I do have a surface level understanding of like how it's working. So like when you're on a powered treadmill, so
yeah,
you're not actively pushing back the same way, propelling your weight forward. So you still do have a semblance of actual running technique, but it's slightly off from running on the ground, and you can feel it. Like there's a difference when you get onto the ground. And running on the ground feels hard. And so like, this is where I wish I had a little bit better understanding of how the biomechanics work. But what I can tell you is when you get on the ground, it does feel more difficult to run on the ground. The woodway, on the other hand, when you get on that thing and you're running on it, you have to power. So you have to propel not only yourself, but you're also pulling back on the treads, and it's curved. So it's like, I've heard people say it's like running in sand.
Yeah,
that's a pretty good description.
It kind of feels like running, but also kind of doing a leg press.
Yeah,
at the same time, like
yeah,
it's just a really light leg press while you're also running.
So I've noticed that when you do, like you said, like 30, 45 minutes on there and get off, running on the ground feels like you're floating.
Yeah.
Yeah. So those things are insane. And because they have an elevated area where because it's curved, right? So when your foot hits up here, the angle that your foot is hitting actually puts less pressure on your knee because it doesn't have that impact of the heel. So it's more center or even toe, like how human beings should be, like properly running. Yeah. So it actually takes pressure off of your knees. So it's better for people who have really bad knee problems to get like real running work done, especially indoors.
Yeah. I also notice it is easier for me to put time on there because if I focus on the calorie aspect and like, because I know it's not an actual calorie measurement, but same way with like getting on a Echo bike or, if me looking at a goal and trying to push that goal up rather than just staring at the clock. Does that make sense?
No. Yeah.
Like,
so you're
for my
you're
workout,
counting
I'll
a number.
like I'm going to do 600 calories on these, the woodway. I don't care how much time that happens in. I'm going to try and run so that happens in as little time as possible, but it goes by a lot faster when I'm just pushing a number up and it's by my own power rather than just staring at a clock that moves the same amount of time.
Yeah, instead of doing a like a countdown, like watching time go. I mean, awful. Actually, no. There's actually science on this too. So watching a clock move does actively your perception of time does change while watching time pass, because time. Okay, so this is a little bit of sciencey stuff, but time, like when they say time is relative, most people don't understand what that means. I'm not going to sit here and say I fully understand it, but the way that you can look at it is from human perception, time is very relative. It's the same reason why when you're hanging out with your buddies, like, and you're like looking down at your watch, like, dude, it's 2 a.m. Shit, I gotta go. Everybody's had that happen. Everybody has had that happen where time flies. Time flies when you're having fun, right? Or when you're like really bored.
Like right now, just about an hour and a half.
Holy shit. So, or like when you look at it, but the opposite of that is when you're actively watching a clock and you're watching the time go, your perception of time slows down. So now imagine that, but in a workout sense, when you actually have to put forth physical effort, it makes things worse. Have you ever put like a towel or like your phone over the time so you can't see how long you've been running and you just run to run?
Oh, yeah.
Right.
It definitely makes a difference. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's that same thing. And what you've done what you've actually done is you've given yourself not a time goal. Like when you give yourself that calorie goal, not only do you take out the aspect of slowing down time and making things feel like you have an active goal you're trying to reach. You have something to aim for. So it's much different, and it's probably what people should be focusing on instead of like, oh, I'm gonna go run for a half hour today. Like why? It's like the same thing as running a distance, right? Like you have 4 laps for a mile. I'm gonna run a mile today instead of saying like, oh, I'm just gonna run here and then constantly like watching a clock go for a half an hour.
Yeah. No, and like I said, that's part of why I think that thing is just like anyone not using it, especially in the military, anyone not using a woodway is just completely missing out.
Because I think they're wasting their time.
Yes.
Yeah,
legitimately, like if you're running on a treadmill and not using that, like you're not getting anywhere. You're not gonna if you're that person that's on the level of like, are you or are you not gonna pass your PT test?
That's not gonna help.
And you're sitting there running on a regular treadmill, like
it's not gonna help. Yeah, there's a I don't know, because I know they're not cheap, right? I mean, I think they're $3,000. Yeah. So I know they're not cheap, but also regular treadmills aren't cheap either. And then there's some high-end ones. Like you've been to a gym before where they have these fancy ass regular belt-driven treadmills that are super expensive.
Yep.
There is a slight
basically
okay.
And no offense, it's basically garbage. I hate regular treadmills. Me
too.
I see nearly no reason why anyone should ever use a regular treadmill.
No. So there is a small learning curve. Learning to move on it without, getting out of control and having. So, yeah. And I guess for a large corporation, having a bunch of treadmills around where it could possibly increase the risk of injury, therefore increasing like the risk for a lawsuit, I could maybe hear an argument for that. But no,
if you're going to run on a treadmill, you might as well get on an elliptical. Let's be honest.
Yeah, actually, so ellipticals,
because then you're going to have much less impact and probably about the same result.
That's what I mean. Ellipticals, they've done studies on people doing cardio on various types of like workout equipment, from ellipticals, treadmills, bikes, seated bikes, like reclining, where you're sitting back like this. Yep. They've done it on the normal bikes, even a Stairmaster. You know what it comes back with? They're all the same. They'll do the same thing for you. Like as far as calorie output, now how your muscles get worked is slightly different and a bunch of other things, but calorie output versus time spent, it turns out that the best advice that anyone can give is do what you like doing, because you'll probably burn more calories doing that.
If I should send you, because I use a like fitness watch to track my heart rate and stuff during my workouts, and I did a split cardio workout the other week between a woodway and then like a regular spin bike. And I went, comparably, I felt like I was going as hard on the spin bike as I was on the woodway between the two, like, about 15 to like 20-minute-ish sets. And then you look at my heart rate versus each one. My heart rate on the entire time on the woodway was in like 150s to 160s range. And then my heart rate on the spin bike barely
120.
got above 140, like barely got above 140 at one point.
Oh,
And
okay.
probably stayed close to like you said, 120 during the entire thing. Like it just looked like a giant drop off and then leveled.
I've been so I was using a Garmin, like just the banded one, not the full watch. I liked it because it did my heart rate and it lasted for 2 days before I had to charge it, and I could monitor my sleep patterns. I got away. I don't know what happened, but one day I stopped wearing it and I started wearing just a regular G-Shock. I don't know. It's not really a fashion statement. It's just like I liked it more. It felt better, whatever. And I still. Like I wore both of them for a while, but I found out real quick that you look like a douche. So
if you wear two watches at the same time, yes.
Yeah. So I was like, oh, maybe I'll put it on my ankle. That way no one will see, and I could still monitor my heart rate. Nah, it didn't fit on my ankle, so that kind of went out the window. So I'm still in the market for like an actual smartwatch, and I was looking at different brands because I did notice a difference when I was actively looking at my heart rate. I got my resting heart rate down into the 40s.
Yeah,
I
makes
remember my record on. So my goal was actually to have the same resting heart rate as Lance Armstrong. I don't know if this was before or after the scandal. It doesn't really matter. I just remembered like he has a crazy low heart rate, and I want that. So I think I had I had a sleeping heart rate, which is the lowest it's going to be during the day. So I understand it's not resting. It's a little bit different. I had a sleeping heart rate of 39. That was my record. I know. Yeah.
That's not bad.
Well, that was my thing. Like I was actively trying to get my heart rate lower. So I was doing, high intensity workouts and things like making my heart stronger. It's like you said before, having a goal.
Yeah. I think the lowest I ever got mine down, because I never measured sleeping, but just like regular during the daytime was 44.
See, that's insanely low. Yeah. And I bet you your sleeping heart rate was probably it's usually on average about 5 to 10 beats slower when you're sleeping. So you're probably in the mid 30s or high 30s. And
no, I remember I was really proud of this because it happened at the doctor's office when I went to go get my blood pressure taken. I had a 49, and usually being at the doctor's office like naturally stresses me out too. So, and I've been drinking a bunch of coffee that morning, but still like just went hooked it up. She pulled a 49. She's like, "God damn, this is the lowest heart rate I've seen in a long time." And I'm like, "Oh, thank you."
Yeah, my resting heart rate. I remember when I was working as a trainer, I did my VO2 max. If you've never done that before, that's where they put the mask on. Yeah, and you go through levels on whatever machine. It was on a treadmill, and you basically go until failure. And what you're really testing for is like how much oxygen can your body process and like the maximum amount, right? So I don't remember what score I got, but I remember our gauge at the gym, right? When we would put our clients through this and people who are interested in it, the gauge went up to some number, like 20 in the 24, 25 or something like that, right? And I remember mine was like off the chart. And it was like in the 30s or 40, whatever it was way higher. And I remember the guy looked at it and he's like, "That's broken. That's not right." So we did it again and I got a higher score. And he goes like, "Oh shit. All right, cool beans." And then I looked it up. I wasn't the highest people. I think that the record for VO2 maxes are people who are like ultra marathon, they're consistent marathon runners and like high end ultra marathon runners, as well as Tour de France riders.
You could just say it.
People on EPO.
Yes.
Oh, Kenyans, yes.
Kenyans or white people on EPO, yes.
Yeah. So you get these people who have these like insane numbers, right? Way above average. But I remember I was like, "Oh, that'd be cool to get to." And I remember trying to shoot for that. But working as a trainer, I think there was a part of me that like kind of gave up on fitness after a while, just because it was my job. It was weird. So
I can believe that.
I have I
wonder how swimmers fare for VO2 max.
probably pretty good. Any athlete is going to be way higher than your average person. But I remember looking at a graph of my past like 2 years of heart rate, and you could look at my resting heart rate go like this. It went from 45 all the way up into like the 60s or the 70s, and I remember maybe that's why I took it off. I was just getting depressed. I'm like, my heart rate sucks. Brr. Yeah, but
I don't want to know about this anymore. Forget it.
What do you actually use like an actual chest strap?
No, I just have a wristwatch.
Okay. Which one are you using?
Like the cheapest shit I bought off Amazon. It is not. Oh. It's effective, and like I've measured against other people's just to see like what the difference was, because someone in my shop had like a legit like $180 smartwatch, and I'm like, oh okay, yeah, they're both reading the same thing. So like it works, but the most annoying part about it is if I'll accidentally like compress it against clothing, it'll turn off my workout if I set it to a workout. I know. And like I've had that happen multiple times to where like mid-workout I'll just like feel it vibrate and realize, shoot, I brushed it against something and my workout just ended. So like one workout will end up like reading out between 3 different workouts. I know. So that's the most annoying thing for me. So I'm like, honestly, eventually I'm going to invest in a much nicer one, but it does the job.
So I do have the one that I had, or I still have it actually. I don't know where it is, but I do have it, and I do recommend it. It's the Garmin. I think it's the Vivo Active HR. So it's just a band, right? So it has the little skinny display. And it's it'll give you a little bit of your text messages or your emails or whatever. That's not what it's for. And it was super accurate. It actually kept up with the chest strap ones. So wrist-based heart rate monitoring have one large flaw, and that's external light getting in between the watch and your skin. Mm. And then the second issue, which isn't as big of an issue, but still a problem, is the amount of blood flow right here on your wrist. It's small and it's further away from your skin. There's also
I usually wear it upside down. So I'll wear it on the inside.
Okay, so that I was about to say. There's a way to counteract that. It's 1, move it up the wrist, and then 2, flip it onto the bottom, the underside of your wrist. Yeah. So that'll get rid of the light and the other issue. Other than that, it really comes down to the technology being used by that certain company, and Garmin uses a 3-light system that is as accurate for 99% of use cases as a chest strap. So. I did a lot of, you know me. So I did a ton of research.
You did a little bit of research.
I did a lot of research into which one would be the best. And when I picked it up, I think it was $75, but I think it's cheaper now. And it's coming from Garmin. They're really well made. The only downside is that little rubber piece right here that holds on to the actual band. It breaks. It just falls off after everybody's fell off. So I just put a rubber band around it. I was like, I don't even give a shit. Who cares? Other than that, I had 0 problems with it. It worked every time. It lasted 2 days on a charge. So I, charge it up for, an hour, and it's good for 2 days. And it's accurate. Their software is fantastic. They have really good, a really good app. You can shower with it, unlike the Fitbit, which was famous for causing.
Mine survived a run through the washing machine.
Oh no! I'm not saying other brands can't, but there's the other big fitness brand that everybody gets, which is Fitbit, was having issues. They say they're water resistant or whatever, but there's a note, like a little asterisk at the bottom, and it's like, don't wear while you're showering consistently. I'm like, well, why would I have to take it off? And like, if you look at like some of the comments are like, caused a rash. I'm like,
that's not good.
I was like, I don't want that shit. And also they use I think Fitbit at the time was using a 2-light system, which was less accurate under motion. I think it would have been fine. I didn't actively test them out as far as accuracy, but I do recommend Garmin's products in general. They have really good heart rate monitors. But at this point, that the Vivo Active HR, which you probably find on Amazon for probably like $50, It's
Nice.
really worth it, and the software, which is free on your phone, is fantastic, and it covers sleeping patterns. So that's one of the cool things is it's active heart rate monitoring during the day. So like every 30 seconds or every minute, it'll take a sample, and it'll give you, that's how it gets your resting heart rate throughout the day. It also will do that while you're sleeping, and it can also sense motion a little bit. So what it'll do is throughout the night, if you're tossing and turning a lot, it knows that you're not in deep sleep. So you'll actually get a sleep readout with varying degrees of accuracy, but it'll show you like how long were you in deep sleep, how long were you in.
Oh no! Don't tell me all this because I know I'm going to also get it for my wife, and it's going to turn into an obsession for both of us. I already see it happening now.
Yeah. I will tell you before you go.
Ooh. Yes, we're going to have to wrap this one up.
Okay. Oh, it's not the Vivo. Oh, it is. Is it the Vivo Active? It's not the Vivo Active. Whoops. It's got to be Vivo Smart. That's what it's got to be. The Vivo Active is their lowest end actual watch with like an actual watch face. I say lowest end. It's not cheap. It's very good though. They have Garmin makes like a $600 watch, which is like their Phoenix. It's for people who like to run triathlons through active wildfires. Those people.
Yeah.
They're like, can this survive a volcano? Oh yeah, it can. Sweet. That's where I do all my swimming. Like that's that's
Garmin Vivo Smart.
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now. 64. It's still 75. Oh, that's the new one. That's the Plus. $70.
You got that? Is it a 3? Is it an HR? Which one do you got? HR. Okay.
Yeah, the HR is the exact one I had, and I got it for it's $70. And
that's not bad.
Yeah, like I said, if you're looking for more features, like if you're looking for something else, like an actual watch with real smartwatch functions, it's not the move. Don't get that.
Well, I would like to get one. I need to check with my security manager and see which one, because there's certain watches I can have and go to work with, because it would be nice to actually have one I can bring to work. I know. So there's a decent amount of brands now that have
get a Huawei.
Definitely not. But there's enough brands now to where you can wear them in a place where smartwatches are generally not authorized in my career field. There's new ones out there, place to place that you can. So I just need to see if I can get the list from him.
Yeah,
because I would like to have the list before I buy the watch, rather than buy the watch and just hope it's on the list.
Yeah, so if you get the list, I can actually, if you don't I'll actually do the research for you if you're not really into that stuff, because I am. So I can go through them.
By all means, yes.
But this one, like I said, it has its limit. Like this one has its limitations. It's not. If you want something that you can actively
it turn off its workout from incidental contact with my body?
Let's see. I do remember having an issue while because when you turn on the workout, so here's the thing: if you never work out, the battery will last for like 5 days. It's the workout with the constant heart rate monitoring that actually causes it to die a little bit faster.
Which doesn't bother me. That's fine.
So I do remember when you touch it, if you accidentally brush against it, it only happened like once or twice, but it's not just one touch. It's like while you're working out, like some sweat falls on it, and then that causes it to read like a swipe, so it'll swipe to a new screen, right? And then, but that doesn't cause a problem. And then like again, something will happen, and it'll swipe to a new screen, and then you'll if you touch it by accident, like while putting weights away, or you bump against your skin, then you'll hit the settings menu. Like it's very rare. But it could happen. It happened, like I said, once or twice.
But it won't be
very rare.
Yeah, mine. It's literally like I compressed it to get something for a couple seconds during a workout, and then it's just that ended your workout. Goodbye.
The watch says I'm done working out. Bye bye.
Yep.
All right, man.
Well, thank you. I will.
Holy crap! It's 10.
I will check that out.
Good grief. All right. I will get to editing. Okay, so for anybody who
Fun.
managed to make it through this entire podcast, you have
You
very.
got a great ad read for Garmin, so congratulations.
Oh yeah, I should contact Garmin. I'll be, and we need sponsors.
There you go.
This video brought to you by absolutely nobody because nobody knows who I am. Anyway, all right, man. Like I said, for anybody listening still, you guys are the best. Thank you so much. I appreciate you guys and appreciate you, man. Thank you for taking time out of your day again and figuring out all these technical issues so we could actually get your beautiful face on screen.
Hell yeah. And also, by the way, this is a surprise announcement for all of our wonderful fans. I will be in Chicago, April.
It's a surprise announcement for me too.
I know. I didn't even tell you yet. Yeah. So I'm going to be in Chicago second week of April for the whole week.
Oh shit! We should do live recordings.
That's what I was.
We should rent out a bar and invite all of our fan.
Yeah, Brian. Brian from Milwaukee. We know. We're proud of you.
All right, man.
Yeah. But yeah, we should definitely try and plan a live one. I think that'd be fun.
Sweet. That'd be fantastic. I'd love doing that.
I'll shoot you the dates.
All right. I will see you later, man.
All right. Have a good one, dude.
Later.